Welcome to another episode of the CERP 10 for 10 interview series. My name is Jun Kwan, and I'm a scientist at ChromaDex, where I help manage the external research program, otherwise known as CERP. Today's guest is Dr. John Gonzalez. Dr. Gonzalez is an associate professor in the Department of Animal and Dairy Science at the University of Georgia. He's been a longtime CERP investigator, so it was a pleasure to host him and have an opportunity to pick his brain. So please, without further ado, enjoy our interview with Dr. Gonzalez. Dr. Gonzalez, welcome. It's great to have you. Of
Thank you for having me and asking me to talk about my research today. I appreciate it.
Of course. So to get started, can you please go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and describe your research interests?
Okay. I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. I grew up in the big city. I had no ag background, but when I was in high school, I had a lot of friends that had ranches and farms that I got to go visit. So I started to have an interest in the agricultural sciences. And so when I went to Texas A&M University, I got my degree in agricultural economics, specifically focusing on farm and ranch management, and then also did poultry science at the same time, which now I use more than my ag economics. When I got my master's degree in animal science from Sul Ross State University, specifically focusing on meat science, and then went to the University of Florida and got my PhD in animal sciences, specifically focusing on muscle biology and its role in meat quality, specifically focusing on meat color at that point.
Go Gators.
Yeah, go Gators.
So in line with that, can you please describe your published research or any research that you have ongoing or currently developing utilizing Niagen, which is ChromaDex's patented nicotinamide riboside chloride? And then in addition to that, why do you think this research is important?
Yeah, I've really appreciated, and then this line of research has been the foundation of my research program here at my former institution, Kansas State University, but also here at the University of Georgia for the past, I believe, 7 years. And it's been a really fun side of my research program that myself and my students have participated in. The first study that we ended up doing way back in, I believe 2017, was kind of a fun undergraduate research study where I had a hypothesis that maybe nicotinamide riboside would increase muscle mass accumulation in developing chicken embryos. And so we ended up having an undergrad work on that project, and at the end of the day, it did work. And so we demonstrated through that study that the preferred location of the injection would be in the yolk, at day 10 of incubation for commercial broiler eggs. From there, we decided, I think this is our ag background. If a little bit works, let's try a whole bunch and see if that works even better. Our second study demonstrated that there's not a muscle mass advantage when we inject nicotinamide riboside into the developing embryo, but there is an increase in muscle fiber density, or the number of muscle cells formed. So that was really an interesting result. Our third publication resulted from in the Journal of Visual Experiments, or JOVE, really just demonstrating how we conduct our research with the injections of the nicotinamide riboside compound. And then our last peer-reviewed publication that we had, I believe, last year, demonstrated the positive effects of NR, but in a different line of broilers. So our first set of research occurred in what they would call a commercial yield line of broilers. And then what we did now is we tried it in a high yield line. So that means they have increased growth rate and muscle mass accumulation. And so what we actually ended up seeing was that these high yield broilers do have the same, not the same response, but a similar response to what the commercial yield broilers do. And we actually, bad calculation by me, yes, scientists mess up. We actually injected 100 times less than we did in the commercial yield broilers, and so we ended up doing that. So to finish, kind of what we're doing right now with our poultry research is we just completed a study with the University of Arkansas, and next week we'll go present the results at the International Congress of Meat Science and Technology, and Padova, Spain, or Spain, not Spain, Italy, excuse me. Demonstrating that when we actually grow the birds out, because I've been wanting to do that for 3 or 4 years, we get a 44-gram increase in breast muscle tissue weight, that sellable product to the community. So really fun. Our other side is really looking at swine studies and how we can prevent the non-ambulatory condition in swine when supplemented the nicotinamide riboside product. And so we've been doing that for the past 4 years now, I believe, on a USDA funded study, and are going to present our first results at that same meeting, demonstrating that supplementing the product at various levels over the last 10 days of feed right before animals go to harvest, that they are less resistant to fatigue when put through a performance test. So really neat result there that we're excited about, and we'll start a new trial soon, starting to zero in on what the correct dose is and the length of time, and that'll be what we do in the last coming years. Both these projects did result in a patent at Kansas State University, and so that's something I'm pretty proud of, because I never thought when I started my career that I'd have anything or an idea that was patentable. So really great research that we've conducted in collaboration with ChromaDex.
Congratulations, and thank you for all your efforts in helping to advance the science of NAD. So to delve a little deeper into that, why do you think NAD is important in meat science, animal science and agricultural applications? And potentially, what do you see NAD's role being there in those fields?
Yeah, I think that really revolves around the sheer size and producing food to feed the world. And I think we used to say back in the day, probably 5 years ago, that we got to find ways to efficiently produce food to feed 9 billion people by 2030. I don't even know what the numbers are anymore. It kind of slips my mind. It kind of increases every time I look at it. But ultimately, these are really important studies. And if we focus in on the poultry studies first, because if you told an average consumer, well, we injected this product, it increased the weight at the breast muscle tissue weight at the end of its life, right before when we harvested it, and that resulted in 44 grams of extra product to be sold. Everybody be like, well, that's 44 grams. It's not very much. But if you think about the sheer size of the poultry industry and how many birds we harvest annually at around 9 billion, that'll result in the 44-gram increase will result in about 874 million pounds of extra meat being sold just from breast tissue. And so you think about food security or food insecurity, that's going to contribute to food security and having more sellable product for consumers to eat. And as far as the economic gain for the industry, that's a $3.6 billion economic gain if you go by the cost of chicken breast right now. And so really substantial increases. The other thing that I calculated the other day when writing a proposal is the legs actually had an increase too, where we had a 17-gram increase. So once again, we're increasing the amount of sellable product for consumers and for the industry. As far as our pig fatigue work and using nicotinamide riboside to as a countermeasure for preventing fatigue, one of the problems that happens in the pig industry is pigs will go, and when we put them on a truck, they're not used to being on that truck, so it's a stressful event. And one of the things is through all that stress, they become tired, and so they're not able to move. In order for anything to be harvested and for food consumption, the animal has to walk into the abattoir on its own. And so if they're not able to walk, then we end up euthanizing those animals humanely, and they don't get to go in the food system. So we end up losing, around $41 million due to muscle fatigue. And then that also ends up, if you calculate it on a 4-ounce meal basis, so that's maybe what your average, pork sandwich would be. That's around 350,000 meals. Once again, we're losing some meals there, contributing to food insecurity. And so, if we can get more energy into these pigs using your product and getting them to withstand the rigors and help them withstand the rigors of the transportation process at the end of their production lives, that would be great and increase both economically to the industry, but also to food security. So very important application there. The last thing that it does, because not very many pigs, if you think about it, the number is 0.65% of pigs harvested, so less than 1% actually experience fatigue symptoms. And so the producer would tell me, well, why does that matter? Why would I feed the product? The other thing that we've demonstrated with the nicotinamide riboside product is that it increases the redness of the product, so that can give a producer economic gain to sell their product to countries such as Japan. And the other thing it can do is it'll increase shelf life, or color stability is what I like to say. And so we won't be, most of the time, we'll lose about $3 billion a year in all meat products being thrown away due to meat discoloration. And so these products we've demonstrated last longer and have less discoloration scores in the meat case. And so that also contributes to less food waste and increase of profits for the retail sector.
So potentially some profound impact, and at a global level too.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for sharing. So, kind of pivoting to a different topic now, do you have any advice for junior scientists, whether they want to conduct a research into NAD or into NAD precursors? What do you have to kind of share with them?
Yeah, you're making me feel old by asking me that question. But no, I do realize now I am entering that stage of my career. But I think don't be afraid to reach out and form collaborations and go for your ideas. When I first started this, I was actually, and I give all the credit every time if I do the long story of my journey with NR, is I was given the science article that by Dr. Dwayne Davis, who was a retiring faculty at Kansas State University, and we had been working on runt piglets in pig production. And so he had given me the article where it demonstrated that you get an increase in muscle stem cell proliferation, and said, oh, well, we should try to reach out to them and form a collaboration. And so I just called you guys up. I found your phone number on the internet, called y'all up and talked, and then we formed the collaboration there, and you guys were very open. And so don't be afraid to do that and follow crazy ideas, because even injecting the compound into the egg, I was like, well, this, probably has a 10% chance of working, maybe. In theory, the science made sense, but I don't really know if it's going to work. So let's try it. Just decide. You have no idea what dose to use. And so I, based on, some of the literature of in vitro literature, that's what we based it off of. And it ended up working. And so, don't be afraid to kind of follow some of your wild harebrained ideas, because that was not where my career was heading at that direction. And so, just on a great collaboration with you guys, and then also following my kind of idea, really formed where I am in my career at the moment. So you'll never know where your career will take you to. That's probably another piece of advice.
Great advice. And lastly, how has being an investigator in the ChromaDex External Research Program, otherwise known as CERP, how has that been helpful to your research and your network?
It's been, like I said, instrumental in leading and forming the direction of where my career was headed for the past 7 years. You guys have always been open to my ideas and my collaborations. You've supported me through interest in furthering the technology. And really, I don't think I would have been able to do any of this without you guys believing in my idea and being open to any type of research. It's very rare you find a company that's willing to let you look at their product just for any idea that you can provide to them, as long as it made sense. And so I really do think that it's been a great collaboration and instrumental where my career is today, and has really made, I think, my job a little more fun, because I'm pursuing my ideas and what I'm interested in, and ultimately, helping pig welfare, maximizing muscle growth and amount of sellable product at the end of animals' lives is really a great thing for me to to think about and to believe in and to be encouraged to do that. The other thing I would say is it's been a really great opportunity to help me train students too. And so this is not, getting ideas, whether it's undergrads, probably, most of the work has been done by a lot of undergrad researchers with supervision of myself and graduate students, but we've had a ton of undergrads work through here. And so this has actually helped kind of some students go on and want to be scientists themselves. And so it's been great for as far as stimulating science and the next generation of scientists too. And I always tell them the story. I'm like, look, this was just a fun idea that I worked with, that I had, and now we're here and we're doing great things. And so yeah, it's really a great story for them to lead on and help us train the next generation of scientists.
Well, thank you for those kind words, and we're happy to have played a part in your success, and we look forward to continually collaborating in the future.
Thank you.
And so, Dr. Gonzalez, thank you for your time. Before we leave, where can our listeners find you online if they wanted to learn a little bit more about you and the program that you lead?
Okay, so thank you for asking that. If they want to come to our departmental website on the internet, it's animal dairy, no hyphen, just animaldairy.uga.edu, and that'll give you the overall background to the great work being done in the Department of Animal and Dairy Science at the University of Georgia. If they want a little more lighthearted kind of comedy and kind of what we're up to as a group, they can go and search us on Facebook at Gonzalez Muscle Biology / Meat Science Laboratory. That we kind of profile students and demonstrate cool things that we're doing, such as trips. I do a lot of study abroad trips, so some of that gets posted on there, but also a lot of our work that we do, especially the ChromaDex sponsored work too. So thank you for asking that, and I appreciate the time that you've given me to give this interview.
Great. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.